Well, Marina, here we are in bonny Scotland. Oh, just look at that view. What? Oh, that. Well, that down there is all that's left of Glengarry Castle. I must say, I wasn't expecting to see so many tourists about the place.
It's the ruined castles that have cornered the tourist market.
Which explains why yours is now doing so well, Mr. Morton.
Thanks to Captain Scarlet.
Yes, he's a good chap. I say, Mr. Morton, would you care to set the old randomiser going this week? You just have to press the big red button right there.
I understand. Right. Well, if that's everything, I'll say good night.
Good night, Mr. Morton. It's 2 in the afternoon. What an odd fellow. Well, Marina, what's wrong? Let me see. Oh. Well, cheer up, old girl. Sure, it's an episode you're not in much, but just think of it as us getting that one out of the way so that the next time we land on a Stingray episode, it'll be one of yours. Come on, let me see a smile. There we go. Okay. Right, everybody, stand by for more Stingray. Here, in case you hadn't already figured it out, is Loch Ness Monster.
Stand by for action.
Well, here we are back with Stingray again, and we're also back with one of the other running Gerry Anderson themes in the Super Mario Nation era, the Scottish episode. Now, we've already covered a slightly Scottish episode with 30 Minutes Afternoon, but that only had one scene in Scotland. This takes place, as you may guess from the title, entirely in Scotland. This was something Gerry Anderson seemed to have a real thing for, Scottish episodes and Scottish elements in the shows. Aside from this, the most notable episode would be Captain Scarlet's The Trap with Glengarry Castle. We also had a Scottish Chief Engineer in Fireball XL5, Jock. Captain Grey in New Captain Scarlet was Scottish. There's one more Scottish thing, I'm sure. Did Fireball XL5 do an episode in a Scottish castle? No, that was Supercar. That was the Phantom Piper. So it was something that Gerry seemed mildly obsessed with, and I imagine it was probably quite fun for the production team to design something different for a change. And this is our first appearance of Admiral Denver, Commander Shaw's old friend in inverted commas, who appeared several more times throughout the series, usually through some form of rivalry or competition between the two of them.
Looks like there's a pretty large fish around.
I don't know if it was that he was just meant as a one-off and kept on, but yes, we should probably mention straight away that this Loch Ness Monster puppet is in no way convincing whatsoever. However, as we learn later in the story, he's not meant to be, and I kind of like the close-up of the face there. He looks kind of dopey. A little dopey, smiley Loch Ness Monster. For those of you who don't know, this monster, the close-ups and the model, were reused from Fireball XL5's Space Monster. So, and maybe they just wrote the story because they had this old model lying around, but I think it's more the Gerry connection. Gerry loves his Scotland.
Yeah, well...
And for the first appearance of Admiral Denver, this scene really sets up the sort of friendly rivalry between him and Commander Shaw very well. Commander Shaw's just sat there with his newspaper, completely dismissive of the whole thing.
So Stingray's off to Scotland?
Yes, and I'd give anything to go with them. Some of my mother's people came from there. But Marina's part of the crew, so naturally she'll be going.
No, Marina's with me now. You don't have to worry about her this week. Interesting map there. Glasgow spelt with a C on the go. That's is that correct? Is that a local thing, or have they just misspelt that? Glasgow.
What's the matter, Marina? Are you worried about that? Don't you want to come with us?
It's interesting that Marina is rather reluctant to travel across land in this, when I know from personal experience she's quite happy now to travel all over the universe. Maybe because I don't give her much of a choice.
Maybe we can talk Atlanta into coming with us.
Yeah, she's always our number 2 choice. She's a permanent runner-up, this poor woman. It's
You can say Stingray.
It is quite a shame. You know, with the whole Troy, Atlanta, Marina love triangle thing, if it came down to it, Troy would pick Marina every time, but Atlanta would never stop waiting for him. And I've always felt that the way that would ultimately resolve itself was in some way Marina would have to go home. That would have been a natural end to the relationship. I don't think she could have stayed on land for the rest of her life. And Troy, being Troy, would definitely have just rebounded straight to Atlanta and they would have got together, finally.
I'll run that old film that we got out of the museum again.
Oh, this is so cute. They have a little film machine on Stingray with the word videotape attached to it.
There you are, Atlanta. What you came all this way to see.
It sure is worth it, Troy. Bonnie, Scotland.
And you can probably tell from that this episode is going to take the very sort of traditional, stereotypical view of Scotland and its people. As you would reasonably expect it to do. There's no way they would go anything but the full haggis and kilts and okay, the new.
And as you enjoy the haggis buns, you can look forward to the steaming hot porridge you'll be getting in the morning. I will, Jimmy McGregor. Och, aye, I will. Good night. Good night.
Yes, I can't help but think that real Scottish people might take offence at this. Oh, I don't know, is it, maybe it's just so not true to the reality of Scotland that people have just dismiss it, just move past it by now. I don't know, if you're listening to this and you are a Scottish personage, do you find this sort of thing offensive or inoffensive or annoying? But yes, do please let us know. Now, the first half of this episode is, I think, largely been filler because we can't really show the monster too much in the first half. So now we have, in addition to the Scottish episode, we also have another Gerry Anderson staple, a dream sequence. Luckily, it's only about 30 seconds long. And I just look at this dream sequence and think, this is probably what Gerry Anderson considered Scotland to be, just distilled down to its bare essentials. Bagpipes, kilts, castles, Highland jigs. I like this, even though it's utterly pointless. There's some lovely work gone into the interior sets of this castle. I'm wondering how much of it was reused from previous Scottish castles in previous Gerry Anderson shows, and how much would be reused again later for 30 Minutes Afternoon and The Trap.
Hey.
But now we have, since we have a castle and we have some time to kill, we may as well sneak around the castle holding candles. Atlanta's already doing that. It does point to this episode not really having much of a story beyond Loch Ness Monster, Scotland, Stingray. It's kind of just watching the characters kill time until we get to the end, really, or until they get to see the monster. This sneaking around is kind of largely irrelevant, especially when they all split up and go off in separate directions.
You don't have to be scared, folks. That monster wouldn't leave the loch. Yeah, but these old castles have ghosts.
Ghosts, yes, that would take up a whole episode all by itself. Ghosts, scary paintings. Troy is basically almost setting Atlanta on fire the way he's holding this candle. He's got it right out in front of him, just kind of rammed into the back of her head.
Let's take a look in there.
We don't want to lose another puppet to the flames, Troy. We've already lost one good friend. Yes, the result of all the sneaking around in the castle is just discovering an empty room.
We're running out of places to look.
We're not really bringing the thrills this week. Not yet, anyway. Who could be behind this door? Is it phones? Is it phones? Is it phones? Is it phones? Why, it appears to be phones.
Wow. Oh, you sure gave me a fright.
Did you find anything, Phones?
No.
So these three have just sort of
Winging this place.
We covered the rest.
scared themselves, gone off to investigate, and managed to scare themselves even further.
Naya?
Yes,
Ah,
completely empty.
not the most fearless aquanauts. Oh, now we have another door slowly creaking open. Could it be any one of the other two characters in the story? Yes, it could. It could be the person who owns the castle.
Well. What are you three doing up in the middle of the night?
We heard a
I
lot.
can't really put myself in the mindset of a kid watching this and genuinely being
You know what it was?
scared or being suspenseful about this.
I'm not gonna worry about it now. Let's go to bed.
No, it's not like we set out to actually find anything interesting. We should just go back to bed. Oh, that's a lovely shot of Stingray in front of the castle moving away. Along with some lovely Barry Gray music. And here's our Loch Ness Monster friend again, looking very Muppety. I do think the close-ups of the head, the face does have a lot of character, but when it's swimming along in the model shots, it looks pretty bad. Oh, but that dopey face, that close-up is just so much fun. Actually, I think I take back what I said about the model shots. It does look reasonably effective
The Loch Ness Monster.
swimming along. I do kind of like the idea that it's just the two brothers keeping the monster, the legend of the monster, alive for the tourist trade, which is an idea that's turned up in other things. I doubt it was new when this was made.
Pretty good for the tourist trade, huh?
Aye, it's very good for us.
Could you show us it working, Andy?
Aye, you could. But you've damaged it pretty badly. It'll be a long
I seem to remember that this episode was one of the very first to be shown. I could be wrong, but I think it was like the third or fourth episode that was shown. So evidently somebody thought this was impressive enough to be shown as one of the initial episodes of the show. I have to say, it's not as good as I remember it. Watching it back today, it's kind of highlighted that not really much happens. It's a nice idea. It's an obvious idea to have Stingray go after the Loch Ness Monster, but nothing much really ever comes of it. And when we get back to Marineville, Admiral Denver and Commander Shaw just go straight back to their argument, so nothing's really been achieved.
Didn't you get any proof?
Well, no.
I do like that Troy's been put into this situation where he's got a choice between helping the two local brothers keep up their legend of the monster, or being true to the World Aquanaut Security Patrol. And in a way, he manages to do both at the same time.
Well, none of you sound too certain. For my money, the mystery of Loch Ness is still a mystery.
If you're calling me a liar, Shaw.
There you go again, making accusations just because you were...
Ray Barrett and David Graham do great jobs with these characters, especially when they're yelling. Commander Shaw's always been a favourite Stingray character of mine just because of his short fuse. Ray Barrett does such a good job with him, so it's nice that he has like an antagonist to really spark off of in the form of Admiral Denver, which is probably why they brought the character back a couple of times. Well, that was Loch Ness Monster. I've got to say, it was never been one of my favourites, but it's okay. It's like they had a really good idea and then they just sort of like, well, we don't really have much story for this, so let's plod around the castle for a little while. In closing, I do have a question that I would like to direct to one of our esteemed hosts, Mr. Jamie Anderson. Jamie, sir, your father's interest/obsession with Scotland and including Scottish elements in this show, what was that all about? Why did he keep going back to Scotland in these stories? Did he ever go to Scotland for real? Did he ever put on a kilt and dance the Highland jig and play the bagpipes? I just want to know what the obsession was all about. It crops up too often in these shows for it to just be a coincidence. I think it's definitely a directive from above. Make it Scottish. And amazingly, that's yet another Scottish episode down. How many more are we going to have? Only time will tell.